Today, I will talk about eutrophication problems in Korean streams and reservoirs, and causes and control strategies we can employ in Korea. First, I will talk about the state of eutrophication, and second, the causes of eutrophication in Korea, and third, I will talk about control strategies we can use in Korea. What are problems of freshwater ecosystems in Korea? The major problem is eutrophication, both in streams and reservoirs. And the second problem is turbidity and physical alteration of rivers and dams are another threat of freshwater ecosystem. Eutrophication is a common problem in lakes, but in Korea, eutrophication is a major problem in streams too. In Korea, eutrophication is more serious in streams than in reservoirs. Eutrophication in streams is manifested as the periphyton biomass increase to the nuisance level, even in rural areas. Flushing toilet and biological sewage treatment can be a source of nutrient. In eutrophic streams with the overgrowth of periphyton, we can observe large fluctuation of dissolved oxygen. Uh, it increases during the day and decreases during the night. So the large fluctuation can be a harmful stress to fish and aquatic animals. Of course, eutrophication is a common problem in Korean reservoirs. In Korea, we have 17,500 reservoirs, and about half of reservoirs are classified as eutrophic, and cyanobacterial blooms are very common, even in drinking water resources. Yeah. In Korean reservoirs, phosphorus is the major limiting nutrient, and eutrophication is controlled by phosphorus concentration. The major sources of phosphorus in Korea can be classified as three groups. First one is municipal sewage, and the second, organic compost or manure in rural areas, and third is fertilizer. The causes of eutrophication can be different from reservoir to reservoir. In upstream dams, agricultural runoff can be a major cause of eutrophication, and algal blooms occur after monsoon when we have a lot of non-point source discharge. In downstream reservoirs, usually the population density is higher, and sewage treatment plant can be a source of nutrient and cause of eutrophication. And in downstream reservoirs, algal blooms usually occur in drought conditions. And in streams, mostly sewage, municipal sewage is the cause of eutrophication. When we construct a large sewage treatment plant near the reservoir, we can observe severe eutrophication. Lake Gihung in Korea is an example of the effect of sewage treatment. It showed severe eutrophication and cyanobacterial blooms after the construction of sewage treatment plant. In large upstream dams, phosphorus mostly come from agricultural non-point sources. Agricultural runoff occurs mostly in summer monsoon season, and algal blooms occur after 1 or 2 months of summer monsoon. Then how can we control eutrophication? Control strategy of eutrophication can be divided into two groups. First one is preventive method in the watershed. Phosphorus removal from sewage and phosphorus reduction in agricultural non-point sources. And the second is in-lake treatment. When we can't control phosphorus in the watershed, we should use in-lake treatment. The primary strategy for the control of eutrophication is sewage treatment. For control of eutrophication, we need chemical treatment in addition to biological treatment, because the phosphorus concentration in the biological treatment effluent is much higher than the criterion of eutrophication. In Korea, we still have high phosphorus concentration in the effluent of sewage treatment plant. This is an example of a lake, Pyeongtaek in Korea. There are many sewage treatment plants, and most of them, their phosphorus concentration in the effluent is much higher than eutrophication threshold value. If we can't control phosphorus in the watershed, then we must resort to in-lake treatment. In other words, it is called phosphorus inactivation by aluminum. Aluminum can combine with phosphate to make aluminum phosphate, which is very insoluble precipitate. It settles down to the lake bottom, and usually it is not regenerated. And also excess aluminum can make aluminum hydroxide flux, which can settle down to the sediment surface and blocks sediment surface, and phosphorus is not regenerated from the sediment, so we can block the phosphorus internal sources. In many cases, phosphorus inactivation is the only control strategy in rural reservoirs receiving phosphorus from non-point sources. Actually, phosphorus inactivation by aluminum is not a new method. It is a 50 years old traditional method, which is commonly practiced in the United States. But it is not commonly practiced in Korea. In the United States, there are many companies who apply aluminum coagulant in lakes when we have cyanobacterial blooms. The North American Lake Management Society strongly recommend the use of aluminum when we have cyanobacterial blooms, which is harmful to ecosystems and to humans. There are some cases of aluminum application in Korean reservoirs. This is one of my research. When I applied aluminum chloride, the phytoplankton settled down quickly. So 88% of phytoplankton settled in one day. And another remarkable effect of aluminum application is the succession and change of phytoplankton community. Before the application of aluminum, dominant species was cyanobacteria in the reservoirs, and after 2 weeks, the dominant species has changed from cyanobacteria to diatoms and green algae. So you can see the watercolor before the treatment and after treatment. Then what happens to the aluminum we applied? On the very first day, the aluminum concentration can increase to 400 microgram per liter dissolved aluminum, but it settled down in a few days quickly to below 100 microgram per liter, which is the natural background concentration. The criterion for acute toxicity of dissolved aluminum is 750 microgram per liter, which is much higher than the aluminum concentration we have observed in the reservoir. And chronic toxicity concentration level is 87 microgram per liter. And after 1 week after the application of aluminum, dissolved aluminum concentration returned back to below 50 microgram per liter, so it is much lower than the chronic toxicity threshold level. And the aluminum settled down at the bottom of lakes. Then what should we do to the aluminum? We can leave it there permanently. It can be left at the bottom of lakes safely. Aluminum is the third abundant element in the Earth's crust, comprising 8% by weight. And it is not toxic in neutral pH. Sometimes it can be toxic in acidic conditions, but we don't have acidic lakes in Korea. Because aluminum is a safe and non-toxic and very effective coagulant, it has been used in water treatment plant for almost 100 years. And because it is very safe, we eat them as anti-acid stomach medicine. So in United States, usually aluminum is applied at the lake, and it is sedimented at the lake bottom permanently. In conclusion, eutrophication is a major water quality problem both in reservoirs and in streams. The first control strategy for the eutrophication is to remove phosphorus from sewage. To remove phosphorus efficiently from sewage, we need a chemical advanced treatment, and for them, we need legal enforcement. We must lower phosphorus standard concentration for the sewage treatment plant. And in case we can't control phosphorus sources in the watershed, phosphorus inactivation by alum is the most plausible, economical, efficient, and safe method for the control of harmful cyanobacterial blooms. The cost for 1 ton of lake water treatment can be less than 1 cent. So I strongly recommend to employ a phosphorus inactivation method for the eutrophication control in reservoirs. Thank you for your